Man, game devs really do just be running with whatever works, because after Gears of War burst on the scene back in 2006 and was a massive success, it really seemed like every third-person shooter for the next decade was a cover shooter. It didn't matter if the vibe was some military shit, some sci-fi shit, or some spooky shit. As soon as you saw this over-the-shoulder camera angle, you just knew somewhere in the game you would have to hide behind cover. And like with anything that oversaturates the market, people got tired of it after a while. However, back in 2010, when all this was still fresh, Shinji Mikami, being the madman that he is, was all like, how about a cover shooter where the player doesn't even have to use that shit? Enter Vanquish, the fast-paced futuristic shooter developed by Platinum Games. I mentioned that this game was forward-thinking for Shinji Mikami, but it was bold as hell for these guys too. Fresh off of Bayonetta, who would have thought that their next game just a year later would be this? This game is like if the fast forward ×3 button was pressed on Gears of War, except with the cogs being able to move like Raiden from Metal Gear. It's wild, maybe too wild for the time, because after it came out, it was quickly forgotten about. It scored well and sold decently, but was far from a smash hit, which is why, unlike Shinji Mikami's Resident Evil 4, this one did not move the needle in the slightest. Regular cover shooters would remain popular, and to this day, there really isn't any other game that plays like this. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. What the hell is this game about? What's with this dude here that looks like a Power Ranger? And why is he slaughtering all these robots?
Damn. I'm going high. Burns! Take the squad down the low road.
You don't need me to hold your hand?
Drag your sorry ass into battle.
So Vanquish takes place in the far future where Russia has been overtaken by a new evil faction called the Order of the Russian Star. They capture a space cylinder called SC-01 Providence and use its microwave beam to eradicate San Francisco. The supposed leader, Viktor Zaitsev, demands the United States to surrender to them, or else New York City is next on the chopping block. Of course, the US rejects this and retaliates by sending a bunch of space marines to infiltrate the cylinder and put a stop to these assholes. With them is Sam Gideon, an agent of DARPA that's been equipped with this new suit called ARS. It stands for Augmented Reaction Suit, and as the name suggests, it heightens the reaction speed of whoever uses it. It has a slide boost and is able to transform weapons to whatever it scans too. Unlike the other Marines though, one of Sam's primary missions is to rescue an important scientist who's been kidnapped by the Russians. So for the rest of the game, Sam and company battle their way through hordes of robots in the cylinder to complete the mission.
It's gonna hurt!
I'm getting good at this falling out of transports thing, don't you think?
More like getting good at looking like an asshole.
Honestly, Sega didn't even need to show their logo in the beginning because almost everything about this game just feels like something they would be involved with. The crazy fast animations, the scoring system, the glistening sheen on the character models and environments has this game looking and feeling arcadey as hell. Not that that's a bad thing, honestly. This game still looks pretty good all these years later, especially with these cutscenes that could get pretty stylish at times. There's a lot of them too. You would think this was a story-driven game or something. You know, the more I look at this game, the more I'm reminded of Binary Domain. Two cover shooters in the same era, both with the same pure white futurism in their aesthetics. Was it a coincidence, or did Sega just repackage what was done here for that game? It's sleek and cool looking, but it did get a little repetitive to look at after a while. Visually, I don't remember any mission in this game, and that's because it was all the same white industrial shit. I understand that this is one location in space, so there's only so much you can do, but with all the crazy sci-fi shit going on, you could diversify the look in some way without it being jarring. This is the same with the enemies in this game, which are just generic looking evil robots you'd find in any other futuristic media. At least the regular enemies. The mini bosses are pretty dope, especially with whatever this thing is that bursts into pieces when you shoot it. You can tell that this game was rushed a little bit too, because I did run into a handful of weird glitches that forced me to reload. You know, stuff like certain arenas not activating and whole doors not opening. At least it runs well. So yeah, as you can see from some of these slow-mo moments and all the sliding, Vanquish ain't your typical third-person shooter. Sure, you got your standard cover shooting with the typical gun archetypes. However, it doesn't take too long playing to realize that shooting from cover is not only not optimal, it's also not fun. Especially mid to late game, the game throws a lot of different enemies at you, and all the projectiles coming at you can make this game feel like a bullet hell. Luckily, Sam is more than equipped to deal with all this. So you got this thing called AR mode, right? And that's the whole slow-mo state here that you've been seeing. Aiming after certain maneuvers is what puts you into this mode, and it's here where you can really lay on some extra damage and precise shots. However, it is limited to this bar here, and if you utilize it too much, you overheat and have to wait a minute for it to recharge. With the AR mode is the slide boost to get around fast, and the melee attack that does a lot of damage to enemies up close. However, both of these moves also utilize the same energy bar. And this is where the challenge comes in, because pulling off all of this and not overheating is a lot harder than it seems. That AR bar drops fast as hell, and since so many of your core moves use it, it means you have to be really thoughtful on when to use them and for how long. Or, you know, just be like me and always overheat because you can't help yourself. Get used to hearing this sound. That means that you overplayed and you have to hide behind cover. Yeah, this isn't as fun, isn't it? And that's when you realize that the punishment for playing bad in this game is the cover shooting. Yeah, the main form of combat in every other third-person shooter at the time is the punishment here. And that's not just me inferring through the mechanics. The game literally decreases your score after each mission the more you stay in cover. That just goes to show you how next level the combat in this game is. The point of this is to push the player out of cover and actually have them doing cool shit. Arenas and hallways aren't this spacious for no reason. Platinum wants you to skate around like a madman and slow-mo blast everything. And yeah, once you familiarize yourself on how to use these tools and develop the muscle memory, that's when this game really starts to open up. Effortlessly headshotting multiple dudes while sliding, dodging a crap ton of missiles, kicking guys across the arena. This game is badass, and that's not even getting into the QTE sequences with the bosses, which are well choreographed. Even my gameplay here doesn't really show how stylish this game can be, and that's because, frankly, I'm not that good, and this game is also pretty challenging at points. Despite the speed and firepower, a lot of the stronger enemies can annihilate Sam in like 2 moves, which means you're kind of a glass cannon. But this just goes back to the game pushing you to use your AR moves in smart short bursts. In typical Platinum Games fashion, there's a lot of hidden mechanics that will improve your play that they don't tell you about. Like how enemies have certain weak spots that you can shoot at to cripple them or kill them faster, or how you can pre-detonate grenades by shooting at them in AR mode. And that's only scratching the surface. There's a surprising amount of depth to these relatively simple mechanics, and it makes replays even more enjoyable because you actually know what you're doing the second time through. Wish there was a little bit more of an incentive to get good aside from looking cool though, because I don't know what the fuck this scoring system is trying to tell me. The total of what? What do these stats even mean? Why couldn't they just add a simple letter grade or medal like in their other games? And since I'm starting to get into some of the negatives, as good as the combat is in this game, it wasn't good enough to where I didn't notice the repetition. I don't even know why this game is separated into different missions when every mission is essentially the same shit. It's just you going from room to room, wiping out identical robots, and the game doesn't ever really evolve from that. Don't know why there's so many damn space marines around when they don't affect a goddamn thing. And I did notice that this game did run out of bosses halfway through and started to reuse like early game bosses late game. I understand that the combat is the core fun here, but some clear power progression or gameplay deviation wouldn't have hurt. Especially since this game already insists on dropping lengthy cutscenes every other mission. And that gets me into the thing that I really don't give a shit about, which is the story and characters. All that depth in the gameplay did not translate here. Sam feels like a video game protagonist from the goddamn 90s. He does cool shit to save the day, and that's all there is to him. Oh look, he smokes and curses just to let you know he's a cool guy. Listen, I don't need an action protagonist to be super complex like Joel from The Last of Us or something, but at least be entertaining to watch. Sam's not even that. Other characters are just as bland too. You got the support lady, the obvious traitor, and the big bad Russians. Oh, and also Hillary Clinton for some reason. Everything up until the end is just Sam and Burns encountering some danger, Elena does some intel, and then gameplay. Rinse and repeat. No interesting lore, no growth in the characters, it's really just action for action's sake. After the intro, you can practically skip all the cutscenes until the end, and you wouldn't miss a goddamn thing. People say that, oh well, you're not supposed to take the story seriously, it's cheesy on purpose, but I don't think I agree with that. This ain't no God Hand where the game has all these gags and is constantly making fun of itself. Nah, there's barely any humorous moments here, and during the end, things get pretty damn serious. The doctor Sam came to rescue gets murked, Burns betrays you and is trying to destroy Moscow. There's the revelation that the president supported the Russian coup as an excuse for war later. And then later on, she offs herself. Yeah, all of this is speaking more serious than cheesy. The only reason that this game feels cheesy is because it has over-the-top action, and the voice acting is, well, I'm just gonna be frank, it ain't very good. Gideon Emery and Steve Bloom are both great voice actors, but man, this is not their best showing. For both Sam and Burns, they put on these really forced, gravelly voices that just don't sound convincing in the slightest. At least not to me.
Miss me, sweetheart? Jesus, you?
I liked you better when I thought you were dead.
And I liked you better when I didn't have to hear your shit. Let's go.
They also don't really match how these guys look. It could just be that the dialogue's off, but either way, I'm not feeling it. I wouldn't spend so much time criticizing the narrative if it was just some background shit that you can ignore, but it isn't. The game frequently takes control away from you to tell it, signaling to me that this was a priority and something to pay attention to. Well, at least the gameplay's tight.
Nigga, did I just catch you having fun?
So yeah, that's Vanquish, one of the many bangers by Platinum Games that will probably never get a sequel. And usually I don't care too much if a game is a standalone because I think the industry has already played with too many remakes and sequels, but this game was clearly rushed out, and the core ideas that it brought to the table can easily be expanded on. Don't think that'll happen though, but one can hope. It's fast-paced, exciting, still looks good, and is unlike others of its ilk. Gets a thumbs up from me, and you can cop this on most platforms, so yeah, if you got the time and bread, try it out. Anyway, that's all I gotta say about this. Do the usual stuff to boost this video in the algorithm, and I'll see y'all next time.